Welcome to Ask the Accountant, the podcast that is made for you. Weekly podcast live Mondays from 8:30 a.m., released on the podcast service of your choice on Wednesdays. Your main weekly hosts, Aaron, Patrick, and Johann. Got something to ask? Submit your questions below or ask during the show. Podcast loading. We are currently getting everything set up behind the scenes, so sit back, relax, and we will be with you in a few seconds. Enjoy.
What? Had a massive meltdown on my camera just then, but welcome to Ask the Accountant for the third time round. On date is the 24th of October 2022. My name is Aaron Patrick, and a very warm welcome to today. With me on today's show is the one and only Johann. Johann, do you want to say hello to everyone?
Good morning. Yes, episode 3, and it's actually blue skies. Sunshine is out just in Scotland, very just, but after a wet, miserable weekend and miserable Formula One result for the Mercedes fans of us out there. But never mind.
We just have to keep going, don't we? There's Brazil still. There's still chance in Brazil. I've still got hope, holding hope for that one. Today's show, we have a cracker installed for you. Obviously, we've got the feedback that we're going to go through into a couple of seconds' time. Then we're going to be talking about our favourite topic of conversation is MTD. I don't know if everyone else is as bored as I am about it, but we're going to be talking about it anyway. Then we're going to be looking at, apparently there's some new Prime Minister, maybe not. We'll have a look and talk about that one. We've got a couple of nice little conversation topics from Accounting Web on accountants should fear the great software consolidation, and Sage launches MTD ITSA. And then we've got some great questions that have been passed in from you guys. And if you guys want to put some questions in, don't forget that you can put the comment in as we have. Hello to Chariot Accountants and hello to Bev Flanagan as well, or just Bev, I think we really should just call her. And then also what we've got is if you do want to put some questions, put the questions in the comments or use the link down below. You'll find on every one of the podcast services we have for our little question book link that you can put in. So Johann, feedback. Everyone loved the podcast last week. Any problems, any issues? How are we doing?
Yeah, no, I've had nothing but positive responses. Even people that you don't really think would listen to the podcast. So I gave one of our clients a call about something the other day, and he said, "Oh, by the way, I wanted to say I loved your podcast. It was a really, congratulations." Like, wow, okay, wasn't expecting to hear that, but okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Shout out to Andy Wainwright, who was saying it's as enjoyable as watching Love Island. And to context that, he enjoys Love Island, so that's a good thing. And we're starting to get lots of different questions and comments on the question form as well, which tells us you're interacting with us. We're not off air after episode 2. Let's see how far we can keep going.
Definitely. And we're doing quite well on the feedback as well, aren't we, in terms of the stars and reviews and stuff on the podcast services of choice. So if you do want to give us a review down below, you will be helping out massively. So big thank you to everyone who has done that one. Let's hope that we can get some continued success and continued thing for the podcast itself. All right, so feedback wise, looking all good. Let's go to our first topic of the day, and I'm going to steal one that we had on the QuickBooks Labs conversation topic. So if you are a mega fan, a super fan, apologies, some of this will be a little bit of an overlap, but I'm sure we can add a little bit of extra to it. So basically, from our point of view, QuickBooks released or re-released, or at least went through again their MTD product as to what we should be expecting. So we got to see on the last QuickBooks, let me get this right, QuickBooks Get Connected, this one. No, it wasn't, it was Connect. Which way around was it?
QuickBooks Connect was last week.
That was it. QuickBooks Connect. That's the one, right? Yeah. Go get those the right way around. Of marketing goes absolutely ballistic. QuickBooks Connect was basically showcasing what's new in the world of QuickBooks. And honestly, there wasn't all that much. But if you want to listen to QuickBooks Labs, you'll be able to see that a little bit more. We did a special episode relating directly to what was released and talked about. And they came through talking about MTD in a lot of their sessions. We counted, was it 4 times the same slide was shown about when MTD ITSA was coming along. So, we should all be very, very aware of when that's going to be. And also we learned about the MTD ITSA's latest offering in terms of what the software looks like, how it looks, and everything else. And very similar to what we had this time last year. So it's very much a case of learning about what the MTD ITSA system is going to look like within QuickBooks. And we've already, or maybe you haven't, but you should be able to see it now in the likes of Free Agent and Zero and Sage. They've all got kind of little snippets of what they look like. And, as you can expect from software, they look like they're going to be very, very user-friendly and very much something that submits the MTD ITSA, which is a surprise to no one. This conversation topic that I was bringing up there, and one I thought we'd best revisit here on the show and just have a little bit of a gander about it and talk about it, is realistically, what are the software providers doing for the likes of accountants? We are Ask the Accountant after all. It seems like they've spent a lot of time putting in a lot of effort so that it's going to be great for the user, which is definitely number one priority. And I want to make sure that that is. But when you've got a year gap between showing off the solution and it's not changed all that much, it seems to just have a nice lick of paint and a few extra buttons here and there, then what are the software providers actually doing? And what I mean by that is, what, from an accountant's point of view, have we got that's going to make it easier for us to be able to make sure that our clients are going to get the best possible solution? Johann, what have you seen so far? Is there anything out there that's made you go, you know what, actually, that's great, that's going to make my life easier? Or I missed something?
So let's go back to the beginning there. For those that are listening that don't know what MTD ITSA is,
your point.
Aaron, in 30 seconds, sum up MTD ITSA for those business owners that are potentially listening, and accountants and bookkeepers who perhaps haven't quite paid attention or listened in yet, or they know what HMRC are like for changing their minds, so they're kind of ignoring it. So let's summarize what MTD ITSA is, so we're not talking jargon.
Is there actually a clerk? Basically, if you think about it at the moment in time, you have a responsibility to file one tax return each and every year on the 31st of January. Sure, you're very aware of that one. Imagine taking that one tax return and splitting it over the year and having 4 individual quarters you have to submit via software and software only, and being what we're calling updates at this point. And then the ability then to file your final tax return at the end. So you're going to go from one tax return, which hopefully everyone's kind of comfortable with, and the same kind of concept of putting in all that self-employed income, and then having to file it into 5 different returns via software only. Reason? Well, it's to make sure that HMRC can have a bit more real-time information, is what they're telling us. And so that you as the user will be able to know what your tax bill is going to be, and it's not going to be a shock. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that's what we've been told.
Done. There we go. Okay, so now we've got the jargon out of the way. I think every general ledger software out there, so QuickBooks, Sage, Free Agent, Zero, they've all got their plans and their solutions of how they're going to get this information from their software through an API into HMRC.
Yep.
That, I suppose, is, especially with dealing with HMRC and their understanding of technology, is the biggest hurdle for the software providers.
Yeah.
As accountants, I think our biggest concern isn't that. In our minds, that should just be a kind of a done deal. That shouldn't be an issue. They should be building their APIs out to meet HMRC standards, pass the information through, test it, make sure it's fine. Cool. And that's what all the software providers are concentrating on, isn't it? It's that, look, we're doing this API. It's like, that's great, but that should be a foregone conclusion. What we're interested in is, how are you as software providers, and how are HMRC for that matter, going to help us to educate our customers and our clients? And how are the software providers going to help us manage this increased workload that is being put on us? Because we've gone from having 9 months to chase a client and file something once to having to chase a client 4 times a year. And we've only got a limited 36, 37 days, whatever it is, to file it in, because it's the same as principle as a VAT return.
Exactly.
So, yeah, the biggest challenge isn't for us isn't getting it from software to HMRC. The biggest challenge for us is changing that mindset, those behavioral things, the cultural things around tax filing for sole traders who have never had to look at anything like this if they stayed under the VAT threshold. And for us, not only is it an education piece, but it's how do we manage this? How do we have complete transparency on this so that we can make sure we don't miss a single client? Now, my dream solution would be that our practice management software, in our case, Client Engager, has the ability to reach out to HMRC in the same way it does at the moment to Companies House. And it verifies the dates that are due to be filed. And it verifies if something has or hasn't been filed. So QuickBooks, Sage, Xero, Free Agent, they all do this already with HMRC VAT. They talk to the portal at the API. The API tells our accounting softwares, these are the period dates that you're filing for. Mm-hmm. And if you've not filed, it tells you you've not filed because the dates aren't in sync with what you expect. So that kind of information's there, but what we've not seen is any accounting software or practice management software for that matter, and maybe it should be, this responsibility could sit with them, not necessarily accounting software. They aren't building an information source, a true source of information for us. So Client Engager's got an amazing feature that we love. So a few years ago, we were using a filing software that was desktop, basically. I won't name them, but I won't get back to them. Where we filed some accounts, and we got the receipt to confirm that they'd been filed. And then clients started getting fines, and it turns out they hadn't been filed successfully, but the software hadn't told us that. Whereas with Client Engager, I clicked complete a year-end accounts task. It confirms with Companies House that those accounts have been filed. If they haven't, it gives me a big red warning, and it won't let me complete that task. So that's fantastic. And that is the concept I want to see HMRC now build out for their softwares and their APIs. So I want practice management softwares to be able to go to HMRC and go, what's the VAT period dates you've got on record? Do they match with what we're about to tell our client? What's your ITSA dates on record? Do they match what we're about to tell our client? That is just such a bulletproof system, but HMRC aren't interested in that kind of information from what I can tell, because that's our problem to manage our client workload. They just want the information telling them how much tax is going to be due. Practice management softwares, because HMRC don't seem to be interested, aren't really looking at this, as they see their own data and you clicking tick that a job's done. That's source of truth. It potentially is, but it needs almost certifying by HMRC. And accounting softwares, most of them that have a practice management module, it's crap. Either they don't have one. So Free Agent doesn't have a practice management software module. Sage, I don't know.
They launched one. It was bare bones at the beginning, put it that way.
Yeah. Iris have got Centre. Bright have got Accountancy Manager. QuickBooks have got something they built and launched 3 or 4 years ago, and it's okay if you've only got 1 or 2 employees trying to manage a few clients in it, but after that, it's just too manual. Xero's got something stuck in the 1990s that's got absolutely no automation and processing in it. But yeah, accounting softwares aren't best suited for that kind of overview management side of things. Practice management softwares are, and they're not even having these conversations. So I think that's what, as accountants, we need, is not to know that the information is going to go through an API and into HMRC and it's a click of a button. That's a given. We're going on the assumption it's built in the same way MTD VAT has been built.
Exactly.
What we need is a support in both managing this workload increase and educating the client.
Yeah.
And there's none of that yet.
No. And like, that analogy is the bit that I keep trying to bring up with people, is the fact that at the end of the day, we've been filing VAT returns via software since the day softwares were brought in. And yes, MTD VAT was a fundamental change, but ultimately it was exactly the same as how we were filing it. We were just making sure we were compliant more than anything else. But I suppose maybe I'm asking for too much, or my expectations are too high, because what software company out there, like we've already said, has actually given us, the accountants, any tools to help the way we file VAT returns? We still get the same experience our clients do, and there's no opportunity to get things signed or approved or anything in product, and all those sort of innovations that really you kind of expect from the software providers we're talking about. Because that's, for me, that's what I would love to see. Like, if I can find a software solution out there that has inbuilt approvals, has the ability to, remind clients that this needs to be done, gives me a list of clients that have been filed and haven't been filed, which, like you've just said there, from a practice management point of view or accountant's solution point of view, should be a given. Like that should be something we should be able to click a button. Oh, look, I've got 52 still to do this quarter. Let's chase on with those ones. Especially with this one, where there are going to be people who are just going to file their own, and that's fine, and we'll support them. Or there's going to be, we're looking at kind of 3, 4, 5 different tiers of client engagement at this point in time. Are we doing all of it from day one, and it's our sole responsibility to file it? Are we checking it on behalf of the clients before they press submit? Are they just doing it all themselves? Are they doing it on another piece of software that we've also got? There's going to be lots of different variations, because every client's going to be different. And we don't have a way of just being able to say, right, here's a list of clients, and this is what they're going to do, and this is how they're going to file it. And there's just not that opportunity there anywhere. And you're right. I mean, the software, as a bare minimum, we should be relying on our software providers for doing this, in terms of, QuickBooks and Free Agent, all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, we will be having to have that information also being in some sort of practice management solution, because you're like me, you're software agnostic. If a client comes along with any piece of software on the market and it's right for them, then you'll support them with that, because it's about making sure the client has the right software, not, oh, well, it's easier if you come over to QuickBooks because we know that inside out. So we're going to have lots of these different lists anywhere, and we're going to have that one area. And I just feel like, I feel for the accounting or the practice management software, because it's kind of been forced on them as, right, you're going to have to find the solution. But I think ultimately, the likes of QuickBooks and the likes of them should be doing it first, and it should just then be a case that they get to grab that data, or however it's going to work, and then it starts presenting into the accounting, into the practice management solution. So I think we're just at this really strange stage. I know we've still got, quote unquote, time to go in this, we're not at the end game really in terms of it, but these are sort of times when practice managers are deciding what software to back. Which software should we be putting our clients on now, ready for MTD? It's we shouldn't really be waiting until the day that it goes live to go, right, actually we're going to put everyone on to Sage or Xero or whatever the solution's going to be. And I think we just need to be shown more now as practice managers of going, what, this is what our software can do for you accountants. This is how we're going to help you make sure clients get things done on time, make sure they get a good experience. This is what we're going to be able to do to aid that. And to give you a bit of a, let's not see it all doom and gloom, but let's see it as actually this could be a manageable solution and manageable way of doing it. And I think we're just lacking on that completely at this point in time. So yeah, I was hoping to see more, and maybe my expectations were way too high and way too, out there, but that's what I want. That's my comfort blanket that I was hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you just said, there's loads of softwares, accounting softwares out there. So if you're not a die-hard one software solution accounting firm, then if you've got some landlords on Hammock, you've got some consultants on Free Agent, you've got some people on Sage, you've got people on Xero, you've got people on QuickBooks. Do you want to be logging into 5 different platforms to look at whose VAT, whose MTD it says been filed and whose hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Even if each one had a front-facing dashboard to give you a summary really easily, or do you want all that in your practice management software so it's in one place? As a manager of a large team, I know I would prefer one place to log in, and that is my practice management software. So I suppose what we're saying is we're putting a call out and we're petitioning for practice management softwares to listen to this, take on board the feedback, and come back to us with some support, because I don't think they really had to do much in MTD VAT. That was kind of dealt with by the accounting software providers.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, actually, we could really do with our practice management softwares stepping up and helping us out here. I mean, as Paul from Chariot Accountants has just said, you're certainly going to be too complex to manage on a spreadsheet. I mean, Christ, I wouldn't. Yeah, I just wouldn't. It's the hours you would lose on the spreadsheet for trying to manage this complexity of stuff. It's phenomenal. So yeah, you definitely need a practice management solution in place for this. And yes, those of us more savvy with our solutions, we could probably go in and build various tasks, etc., to help make this better. But if the practice management softwares did some of that work for us and took on some feedback from their users and started looking at how they could develop to build and support this change from HMRC, that would be really good.
Yeah, and it gives us less point of failures as well, doesn't it? Yeah, you've just said that we could use Zapier and we could use all these other solutions out there, and we could make a really slick, practice management end-to-end solution. But its point of failure is the fact that one of the APIs fails, or someone clicks the wrong button here, or someone clicks the wrong button there, and then suddenly the client's then at risk, because that's ultimately what's going to happen, is something's not going to get filed on time and something's not going to go right. So I think, and I think also we as consumers and accountants and everything else, I think we need to push more against HMRC as well on behalf of these practice management solutions, because in an ideal world they're probably already looking at it, but they're being restricted by what HMRC can do and can't do. And at this point in time, if you're going to, we're trying to tell everyone we've got the best, most digital, advanced tax solution in the world at this point in time. That's what MTD is supposed to be all about, that, we'll lead the way and everyone else will follow. Well, for us to lead the way and everyone else to follow, we need HMRC to also provide much better opportunities for us to do it. If we're going to be putting all this information in, getting a 648 in place and everything else, then that's what we should be getting back. What I also would love to see as well is if HMRC can be less restrictive with that data. They released this new API, what was it, about 2, 3, 4 months ago? The idea that then you can actually grab data from HMRC in a different way. So just to give context for people, if you're doing a tax return for someone as an accountant, in my software now, I can press a button and then their P60 information and all that sort of stuff can come in much, much better than it ever had done before. Before it was a very manual process of getting that data in, and sometimes it failed, sometimes it didn't. And that sounds amazing. And suddenly you're thinking, wow, how much time can I save with this? Well, the problem is HMRC has been so restricted with that for me to grab that data, I have to put my national insurance number, that's me as Aaron Patrick. I have to put my passport number in. I have to put a driving license number in for each and every single client. I've got to go through this rigmarole of providing this data, proving who I am, etc., etc., etc. And yeah, again, maybe our software providers got the wrong end of the stick and they've not activated it properly or something. But at the moment, for me to go through and have this massive time saving, I'm having to go through this massive long hoop that could take me 5, 10, 15 minutes per client in some cases, because I've not got the right details on file for this particular bit. So yeah, it's becoming, we as the consumers and as the people looking to try and push it forward, I think we need to put a lot of pressure on HMRC as well, and then work with them. And as Bev says here, people like Iris, people like client engagers we've already mentioned, that then they can actually go and do the work that they need to do to help us as accountants get stuff done.
Definitely. I think, hopefully some accounting softwares and practice management softwares will listen to this and if they want to have a chat, then we're more than happy to sit there and feed back to them on a one-to-one basis. It's not a unique view we hold. It's a fairly broad view held by most accounting firms, I would say. Anything we can do to support this from a software's point of view would be well received.
Definitely, 100%. And also, put it out there, we'll give you some free shout out on this podcast at the very least. So, what more would you ever want? There we are. That makes it all that make all the investment in the new thing all worthwhile. All right, then. What was our next topic? Unless is there anything else on making tax digital you want to talk about, or should we save it for another podcast?
Let's move on. Otherwise, I think we'll be sat here for hours talking about this.
Yeah. I've got a feeling this is not going to be the last time we talk about making tax digital, unfortunately. Okay, so maybe news to some people, but it looks like we have, since our last conversation, our last podcast, we have lost a prime minister, and there is potential for a new prime minister to be coming into play. Is it a shock? I don't know. I don't want to get too political about it, about what happened to the old prime minister. What is interesting to see, though, is it very likely that Rishi Sunak's already got past the number of votes he needed. He's already put himself in so he is definitely one of probably two candidates that's going to go through if the other candidate can go through. I think the only thing that we've got to be mindful of is how this may be affecting small businesses out there. It was one of those where Rishi as a chancellor was fantastic in many, many ways in terms of, helping us through COVID, providing some support. And, overall, if you look at what's happened in the mini budget versus what happened with Rishi, there was very little in terms of this, instability or however you want to phrase it in terms of, the market crashing or anything like that. So if you kind of look at it in that sort of respect, then he did quite well as a chancellor. The issue that we've got to remember, though, I suppose, and just kind of be wary of, is the fact that he wasn't that great for small businesses. He kind of had a little bee in his bonnet a little bit. And I wonder if he was to become leader of the Conservative and prime minister, would he be able to put the same sort of kind of opinions down and be able to have the same sort of aggressive nature towards small businesses? Who knows? So yeah, I thought it'd just be an interesting to see what your take on it is. But then again, I suppose your point of view is, by the sounds of it, you won't be part of our government much longer anyway, will you? I mean, if Nicola Sturgeon has anything to do with it, so.
If Nicola Sturgeon has anything to do with it, we'll be independent of your problems. We'll have our own. It's interesting. Like we see, obviously, we are affected in Scotland by everything that happens in England, and so on. And then on top of that, we've got an extra layer of complexity. So, like when the 19p tax thing that was announced for personal tax rates was announced, it was very clear that the Scottish government weren't going to reciprocate and pass that down to people in Scotland. So, yeah, it makes it a lot more complex for us, especially when we've got clients on both sides of the border. We have to double check a client's address before we can give out any advice. It makes it more complex. Trying not to get too political about it. Out of the options, I'd say Rishi was probably the better choice for businesses. So yeah, let's wait and see what happens this week. It's going to be an interesting 10 days, isn't it? Let's face it. We've got new Prime Minister coming in. We've got a budget update scheduled for the 31st of October. Yeah. Will that happen? Won't it happen? Will Jeremy Hunt stay in place? Won't he? I don't know. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting week. So we'll see what happens. Is as far as I'm going to go on that from a political point of view.
Yeah. I think for me, the thing that's just highlighted all of this is how actually relevant and important these decisions are. You know, prior to what happened in the last 45 days or however long it's been, we've always been a case of, it's so and so's in charge, and we've done this, but it was always a case of, we just kind of suck it and see, and it was fine. It was some changes happen. Sometimes we like them in a budget, sometimes we don't like them in a budget. Okay, fine, that's how it is. But actually, fundamentally how important these decisions are. We've just seen, like, who would have known or who would have guessed that, a mini budget, I suppose writing was on the wall, but who would have seen how damaging that could have been? We were all at the time deciding, should we be happy or sad about these changes when it first came into play? We were kind of, from our point of view, definitely, we were talking about, like, how does that affect our clients? Let's get all this content out, blah, blah, blah. But actually, it was far more important and it was far more destructive to what actually could have happened. And I think it's a case of knowing now that actually stability is a wonderful thing, isn't it? And I think that's some sort of which we need now, one way or another. So
yeah, I mean, we're definitely going through a period of change when, up until COVID, so up until 2020, we used to go, as accountants, right, Conservatives are in power. This is kind of what we'd expect from tax policy. Labour are in power. This is what we expect from tax policy. And you could generally advise your clients quite simply based on that.
Yep.
Because each party had very clear agendas on that. Whereas now we've never known it to be so sensitive to who's in power within that party. Like what Liz Truss did, we would never have expected potentially 2 or 3 years ago from a Tory government. But then I think we could argue the same, that all the financial support that came out from Rishi during COVID, we perhaps wouldn't have expected furlough and stuff from a Tory government. Would have been more understandable if that came from a Labour government. But what it does show is even now, we don't have the ability just to go, oh, it's a Tory government, it's going to be X, Y, and Z. They're going to help this, they're going to slash this, they're going to up this. And then, oh, it's a government from the Labour Party, so it's going to be X, Y, and Z. We don't have that ability anymore. So, yeah, we are on tender hooks. And believe it or not, to those clients that are out there and to small businesses, they don't call us accountants and run things by us before they tell you. The media tells you, and we're learning at the same rate. The amount of times clients will ring us and go, so what does this mean for us? It's like, we've just heard it off the news at the same time as you. They didn't run it by us and give us the background and the detail before they told you. So just patience with your accountants, people. Patience.
Gone are the days when the biggest conversation topic is, what's that AI? What's going to happen to AIA, annual investment allowance, and is that going to go or not? And sometimes I wish those days could come back, couldn't they? Is he easier for content?
Is he sipping gin in that glass, or is it water?
Exactly. Okay, so this next one, I'm going to just outright explain that I've stolen this from Accountant Web, but I'm sure they won't mind. But they put a really good article on, and it's one that we've been talking about a lot over at QuickBooks Labs. So I thought this one would be a good time to bring it in. Should accountants fear the great software consolidation, or should they embrace it? To give you a bit of context of what this means, is we've seen some really big plays in the software market. So obviously we're talking about QuickBooks, Sage, Iris, the bookkeeping and accounting solutions. And especially in the Sage world, they've basically gone and made an ecosystem of software. So they've gone out there and they've bought various pieces of software, a proposal software, a software to help them actually go and put reporting together. They've bought other bits of software that basically creates this massive ecosystem where instead of you having the opportunity to have maybe choice or anything else, that if you are a Sage user, then it makes a lot of sense. And the most sensible way of doing it is to go down the software that they bought and they've introduced and they've brought in. And it's created this, what's been said on here is the consolidation of your software. And it comes with some really great positives, but also some negatives as well. So really the conversation that I was going to throw out to you, Johann, is what do you think to this? Do you think this is a good thing for everyone? Or do you think this is something we should be wary of going forward? So we're in I suppose, a bit of a better's not the right word, but we're in a more luxurious position where QuickBooks hasn't really gone down that route, and we are both very QuickBooks orientated firms. But they are starting to see those signs that they're starting to maybe follow suit, maybe going down the same route as well. So do you think that's going to be a good thing for our firm, or do you think that's going to be a bad thing for our firms? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this was a fantastic article by Tom Herbert at Accounting Web. He does some really interesting stuff, and his podcasts are fantastic as well. And he's a really nice guy to get onto a podcast with and have a chat with. He's done it. It's certainly got me thinking about what is best. I see a lot of value in this one-stop shop of going in and just having this one platform where I can see everything, do everything. Saves me having all these different windows open on my computer. However, does that mean that each part of that solution is the best part on the market, or do you need a best-in-class? So, is the practice management software the best one on the market for your firm? Does it work how you want to work? Or are you better off with a separate bit of software on a separate window, a separate login to ensure that it's better suited to you and your business? So, we always used to buy software based on features. We've also now started to look at philosophy. So we fell out with a software recently that the way they wanted us to work and the way we wanted to work were very, very different.
Yeah.
And for that reason, we couldn't keep working together because it wasn't supporting us the way we wanted it to. So if the overall philosophy of, say, the Sage ecosystem or the Iris ecosystem or the Bright ecosystem works for you and your firm, then great. But if there are slight deviations, even as simple as whether a system notifies you of an upcoming appointment or not, and you want it to, and it's saying, no, we're not going to because that's disturbing your workflow, then actually, is it going to work? Probably not. So I think some firms are going to be able to use this all-in-one place ecosystem absolutely fine. And I think others are going to have it and pick and choose which parts they do and don't use and pay extra for the ones they need to then link. Yeah, I think providing they don't take the approach of closing down and putting up walls so no one else can pick it and use it. So, if Sage's proposal software was to be Sage only, to force, because there's a huge following for that proposal software, to force everyone onto Sage, I think that would be a terrible business choice. And the same with, Accountancy Manager. If Bright turned around and said only Bright users can use this, you've got to use Surf Accounts, you've got to use Bright Pay, you've got to do this, you've got to use BTC Accounts Production, and that's all we're going to talk to, then that's a challenge for those firms that don't want to use those other bits. They do want to use Accountancy Manager because they see that as best in class. So yeah, as long as they keep open APIs to everyone, I've got no issue with them doing it. I don't think it will be a solution I would follow wholeheartedly, because my experience with these ecosystems is bits just don't work how you want them to. So if you look at Cabium, there's bits on there I think are fantastic, but there's other bits that they're just not going to work for me and our firm and the way we work. Same with Numisma. They've got all this all in one solution. But it's just not right solutions for us in some aspects, but in others it is right. So yeah, I'm still on the fence. I think our approach would be we'll choose our main accounting bookkeeping software, which in our case is QuickBooks, and we will then review the options available to us for various features like practice management, etc. And we will bolt on. We'll either use the one within the ecosystem if it's the right choice for us, or we will bolt on an additional software that is the right choice for us. So yeah, that's my stance. I know Paul from Chariot Accounts has just said, "Oh, it'll be brilliant. It probably benefits new firms." Yeah, if you're starting from scratch, if you've got nothing in place, and you went to Iris or Sage, and they had this whole suite of softwares, and you can build all your processes and systems around that, then it's a really positive move. It's the right thing for them. It's more firms that are established and they've got their ways of working that they want to keep because they think they're quite productive and efficient. And if that ecosystem doesn't quite work for that, then that's where you need to find your best in class options. So I think there's a space in the market for both.
Yeah, without a doubt. And like you said, like for new clients or new firms out there, this is a best it's ever been. Like that dream scenario that you go with one of those big ones, Iris Elements or Sage, whichever one you want to go with, and you then press one button, you send that proposal to a new client, you press another button, it sets up their software, it sets everything else up for them, and you've just got the dream, end-to-end solution so you can support the clients and not have to even worry about it. It just works. Not spending the hours upon hours that we've had to spend in setting up onboarding solutions and having to tweak them and all this, that, and the other. If you can just have it so that the software does it all for you, that's going to be absolutely amazing. But then the other side of it is that when there is this one ecosystem, is it does make you have to think about your choices. Like I'm now having to decide, is accounting manager right for me now that they've acquired BTC and they're going to be integrating a lot with them? So, this one ecosystem in theory means that they can then start keeping you all in the Bright universe. But if I'm not happy with all the elements of the Bright universe, I'm never going to stay with them. And I'm going to have to consider and maybe look elsewhere and, have to have those conversations. And it really does make you kind of worried, because ultimately what will happen is you're going to be using a solution with software and you're going to miss out because it won't talk to XYZ as much as it talks to Y, because they're not in the same ecosystem and the features aren't the same and everything else that goes with it. So you're probably the same as me in terms of you're always looking at other software, or especially back in the day, and it was always grass is always greener and, oh, I wish I had that feature. Oh, I wish I had this feature. And this day and age, it's like either that feature is overly hyped anyway and it would never have worked in the way that it should have done, or actually, it's a feature that you could maybe generate your own or figure out a way around or find a workaround in the end, isn't it? And those days of jumping ship from one software to another just because of one feature are probably not as important as well, because we've got to that point where cloud software has become so feature rich in comparable to their desktop counterparts that we're not missing out on things if we're cloud. We're not missing out if we go through one software solution to another, other than kind of maybe one or two little things. I think for me though, the biggest consideration people have just got to go when they go down this route is just that opportunity cost they may lose out on. If you are just Sage or just Iris or just whatever you are, and a client comes along and they're already on another solution, then you've got to make a choice of either going, right, is it right to move them over to your preferred platform, or do you have to just pass that client on to someone else? So that's something you've just got to be aware of, isn't it? And that's kind of the decision you've got to make from day one if you are going to go down this whole being involved in just one solution and one consolidated solution going forward. I tried to build our practice from day one to be this whole turn the tap on mentality, where if a client came in, they would send data to us. So bills@boffix.com, for example, and whatever their client name is going to be, they get their own email address, they send all the data to us, and then we pass it on to whatever OCR, whatever receipt capture solution we want to use. Is it going to be Dext or Receipt Bank back in the day? Is it going to be auto entry? But now that probably isn't going to work going forward, because I'm now going to be restricted to who I can send it to, because I can't send it to Dex because I'm not in their full ecosystem, or there's no point me sending it to Sage now, auto entry now, because it's, again, I'm not in their ecosystem. So I'm limiting my choices because I'm making choices of who to be with. So it's going to be really interesting. And I wonder how far down the likes of Xero and QuickBooks are going to go. Like, ultimately, their strongest asset is the fact that they are brilliant bookkeeping solutions, which is why we've always been, QuickBooks, and we know lots of people who are Xero because they're very focused on their bookkeeping and how they work with clients. I wonder if, the likes of Sage and Xero going down these routes, and obviously they've got interest in it, because why wouldn't they? They're losing ground on the competition at this point. But does that mean that the heart and soul of what's good about them can disappear, and maybe the enhancements and features going forward are going to be limited because they're now turning their heads at doing accounts production and doing practice management or buying solutions to fill those gaps. So I wonder if that's kind of going to hamper the experience going forward. What do you think to that one?
Yeah, I mean, the moment you start going into new areas, you're starting to dilute your focus and your expertise. You're diluting your niche, as it were. I think they need to do it to a certain degree to be able to offer an ecosystem. Whether it's an ecosystem that's fit for purpose for everyone is a different matter. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next year or two, I think.
Without a doubt. And Chariot brings up a good point here about using Jot forms to obtain payroll and onboarding new clients. And we did exactly the same back in the day when we first started. We used Jot forms or Google Forms or whichever we were using at the time, or mixture of them, and jumping between the two of them. And that's a great example of where, it's great having the choice and being able to build your own, and you feel good about it. But from a client's point of view, actually, if you can just have, now we have it's all done through one provider for the onboarding, for example. Our payroll will go out and request hours automatically and things like that. You're adding extra functionality to your client, and you're making your client's life better and easier, and there's less barriers of entry because we've decided to go with one solution over the other. That's where the benefits come in if you're in that one ecosystem. And it's kind of it makes it very difficult for you to go back to the days when you would have multiple different points and multiple different elements, because you ultimately are restricting what you can do and your growth potential in some respects for your practice. So yeah, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be a point where we're going to have to make these decisions, aren't we? Of right, we're going to have to sever ties with a software solution we've been using for 5 years, maybe more, because there is a solution out there now that integrates better with what we are already using, and it becomes a no-brainer. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. I think that's definitely a topic of conversation to come back for, because there are acquisitions all the time. And I think most of these acquisitions these days are not just, let's just buy a piece of software and just to, grab their, their P&L, or be able to get their dividends, or to get their investment coming out from that standalone software. They are buying the software more and more to bring into part of that group and part of that ecosystem. So be interesting to see how that goes forward. Final bit of news topic. I know what you're.
We leave that one. I'm just thinking we've got about 13 minutes left, and we've got all those questions we want to go through. So
yeah. All right, cool. We'll bring that on into next one. All right, very good point. So Q&A section. Remember, if you've got questions, then drop them into the question box on the right-hand side of the live. But if you are listening to our later date, don't forget that below in your podcast service of your choice, or on any of our social links, you will find a link to our question submission area. And in there, we have had quite a few questions coming through. So we'll go through as many as we can. If we don't go for all of them, we'll just save them for next time. So the first one that came through was, how do you get your first job in the field of accountancy as a fresher? Go on, go for it.
That is a good question. We as a firm don't really focus too much on qualifications. We're more attitude and aptitude. We want to see someone that's proactive, engaged, enthusiastic about the industry. So if you came to us as a fresher with just your degree or whatever it is you've come out with, that's great, but you're probably going to be in amongst several others that are coming in with the same level. If you came to us with having completed your QuickBooks core certification or your advanced certification even off your own back, then that shows us you're investing your time into this. You're investing and you're enthusiastic about it. That shows us a lot about your personality and your traits that we are very attracted to. So yeah, if you're going to come to us for an interview or apply for a job, we want someone that's up to date with the current things, not just tax rates and stuff like that. I mean, we can all find that on Google. It's not actually that difficult to learn. But if you come to us and we say to you, what's your favorite software or something. We want someone that's got an opinion. We want someone who's obviously spent a bit of time looking at this. Are they reading Accounting Web articles? Are they listening to podcasts such as this one, or QuickBooks Labs, or Accounting Web, or Cloud Accounting, etc.? Where are they investing their personal time? Because if they are investing their personal time into all stuff like that, actually, it tells us a lot about them. And it's like they're going to go above and beyond. They're enthusiastic about the industry. They're keen to learn. So yeah, anything like that you can demonstrate that you're doing a bit more above and beyond than just going to university and getting a degree that you've done well in. And great, fantastic, well done for that. That's not a bad thing at all. But that's what every single person in your class has done, basically. Like, if you're in a class of 50 people, you need to find a way of distinguishing yourself if all 50 of you applied for the same job. And by proving that you are listening to podcasts, that you're reading articles, that you're spending your time watching YouTube videos on different softwares and how they work and the benefits of them, then that's really puts you head and tails above the rest of your class of 50 students. What are your thoughts, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I echo quite a lot of what you're saying there. The training has never been better. We've got so many options out there. We've got so many ways in which we can train someone to be an accountant. And I'm confident that literally anyone that shows the right attitude and the right characteristics can get trained up, and we can train them to whatever level that you need to be. And there's so many options of routes and everything else that's coming through. And also, accountancy is such a very varied career choice. There's so many different types of accountants out there and different ways in which you can learn and go through that. I'm confident we can find something that's right for you and what you want, and work with you to be able to bring it in. So Jan's right. It's all about that whole, not about trying to make sure that you've got the right qualifications at day one, or know the right jargon as much at day one, but it's about making sure that you've got that ability to be able to understand and thing. And my biggest element that I've been looking for in every employee that we've taken on is empathy. It's like, do you care about small businesses and clients and how they why would they need an accountant in the first place? I always ask that question, is why do you think clients need an accountant? And if their response is always to file taxes, yeah, but what else? Why are we here? Why are we trying to sell our services? And if you can show that empathy for the likes of small businesses, and understand their pain points, and understand why they would need a service like an accountant in the first place, that goes a massive long way in terms of understanding that there's more to it than just knowing about the VAT rates and tax rates and everything else like you mentioned before. I also think just having that awareness of different schemes and stuff. You don't need to know all the jargon, you don't need to know all the rates, you don't need to know everything else, but understand that there's something called VAT out there, there's something called PAYE out there. Just having that awareness that there are different taxes and different elements that will affect small businesses, then I think that really does go a long way. And one thing I always say to people when they're in that interview stage and they're in that bit for the first time is, it's a two-way street. It's not just us as employers trying to make sure that you're the right fit for our firm. We need to make sure that our firm is right for you as well. So there's got to be questions being asked. You've got to be asking, realistic questions about what you think this firm's going to be like. What's it like to work for this firm? What's the day-to-day look like? Those sort of things. When we sit there and we go to the question and we get to that point in an interview where we go, any questions your end, that's probably one of the most important parts of the whole interview process. So if you've managed to get there and you get that opportunity to ask questions, and just ask and ask and ask, have them all written down beforehand, get some questions, make them particular about that company that you're going to be asking for, and it will go a long, long way. There's nothing worse than sitting in an interview asking any question. They go, no, I think I've got everything now. It just doesn't fill us with any confidence going forward, does it? Yeah. And like Johann said, just drop in the fact that you're listening to things like this and other elements out there, and it'll go a massive long way.
Definitely the way forwards.
Awesome. All right, next question. I know we're a bit short on time, so we'll just make sure we go through these a little bit quicker. So first one, hi guys. This is actually my first real experience with podcasts, not being a person who communicates and prefers blasting out my favorite songs in the car instead of listening to I'm losing it. Listen to news. I'm excited to learn more. And now I can't even read the last bit. What's it? Bad. My question for you both is if QuickBooks didn't exist, what do you think would be your next go-to accounting software? And that's from Paul Whitehouse, Chariot Accountants.
Tough question. I mean, would I want to be in the industry if QuickBooks didn't exist?
Ooh.
I don't know. No, joking. I think for me, the second choice would have to be Xero, based on the audience that it could achieve. Like, if I felt that Free Agent was going to suit every single one of our current client base, and it would have allowed us to grow to the size we are with the variety we have in our day-to-day lives in our firm, then Free Agent, probably from a culture point of view, sits much better alongside us than Xero does. But Xero would give us the ability to, with Xero, we'd have probably achieved around about the same things as we've done in the last 5 years with QuickBooks. We probably wouldn't have the reputation and the brand awareness that QuickBooks gives us. Xero don't seem to promote and support their accountants as well as QuickBooks seem to do at the moment. Yeah. But from a service delivery point of view, every client we have today, we could support through Xero if we had to. We couldn't do that with Free Agent, which is why that would have to outweigh the cultural alignment that Free Agent would offer us. What about you, Aaron?
So I agree with the Free Agent type of approach in terms of what I love about Free Agent is the fact that it's very much, you cannot go wrong in terms of what they built. Like they're very much, if you're going to post something, you have to explain what it is. And I can only go to this thing. And they've also very much thought about how, from a client's point of view, it looks, and what the client's point of view, what works for them. So I think Free Agent would be a good middle ground. I don't know if they would be able to push as much as we've been able to in terms of growth and being able to do what we've been able to do with QuickBooks. So I think my actual final answer, and it will shock a lot of people, would be probably Sage. I mean, before QuickBooks, I was a Sage Line 50 super user. That was my absolute favorite piece of software. And I just wish that there was a better, if they took the right development platform and they've made Sage Line 50 into the cloud much sooner and equivalent to it as well. I think if they'd have done that, it would be in a whole different landscape. It would be Xero, QuickBooks, or Sage. It would be one of the three. And maybe we would have even, stuck with my Sage background and stuck with them. As bad as that, well, not bad, but as crazy as that might have seemed. So, yeah, and I am, I do look with rose-colored glasses, as we've already said, that whole ecosystem are built and everything else. So, I think if it wasn't QuickBooks, I think I would have just stuck with Sage and just rode out the good and the bad with them and see where they're going. So, yes, I'd still be using Abacus at this point in time and wouldn't know what a thing called an internet is, or but I'd have software that I think I'd be comfortable with. All right,
great question,
time for one. Go for it.
That was a really good question. That I think our listeners have learned something about us, and it almost explains why we've made our choices so far. Yeah. So, yeah, really good question. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, great question. And any more like that, then please do push them through, and that's for anyone out there listening.
Definitely.
I'm just gonna skip that quick. So right, we'll end on a kind of a funky one. Johann, this is a big question. What is your favorite restaurant for breakfast?
Okay, I have 3 because I'm greedy. It's down to how you feel, what mood you're in. So, if I am meeting software providers or someone else is paying for dinner, then it's Dish Room.
Oh, you've stolen mine, but yeah, go for it.
If it's me going out with family or friends for breakfast or brunch, it's got to be Edinburgh Larder. Really nice, casual, sit down, really good breakfast, local Scottish food, really well done, really nice place. And there's actually a video with me and them that QuickBooks have done over a couple of years ago on YouTube.
That the one that keeps appearing on the stands?
Yeah. And if it's a more of a grab and go, like I want a bacon roll or something, then Hank's Sandwich Bar in Edinburgh as well is absolutely phenomenal for good. They're good for breakfast or for lunch for decent sausage butty or bacon butty or whatever it is you want.
What's a butty?
Breakfast butty. So yeah, they're really good, and they're also on a QuickBooks video that I've done.
Nice.
I haven't chosen them because they've got QuickBooks videos with me. They are my favorite free spots for breakfast. What about yours, Aaron?
Okay, I'm gonna go free as well. Has to be Dishu. If anyone's ever has the opportunity to go and have a breakfast there, it will change your, I'm gonna say life. It's just as simple as that. I mean, I don't want to be dramatic, but no, but it's absolutely brilliant. It's a whole different take on it. It's Indian take with this. I mean, they do a naan bread with sausage in there, and yeah, you've just got to experience yourself. I won't ruin it for anyone. Go in open mind, and you'll absolutely love it. Grab and go. We tried something new the other day down here called Tim Hortons, which is a Canadian restaurant that's only just opened down here. So never heard of it myself. Never really took any thing of it. But the coffee alone is just, they do this vanilla coffee, and if you've ever been in America and had their kind of vanilla coffee there, it's just like absolutely brilliant. And then for my kind of, sit down and have a bit more time, we have a little place called Newlands Farm Shop and tea rooms around our area.
Nice.
And the reason we absolutely love it there is it's your typical, cafe that's got lovely breakfast. It's all farm shop and everything else, so good quality food. But more importantly than anything else is it's massively dog friendly. So we can take the puppy. We'll, we get to sit down, have lovely breakfast, and they even have a park that you can let the dog off on, and then she can run for her heart's content. And they even have a nice little woodland walk that they've created as well. So it's kind of, you can meet friends there, have some time there, and yeah, absolutely love it. Just that little bit of extra there where you got the chance to, take the puppy and enjoy it from there. And the food is absolutely spot on as well. So there we are. There are the big questions that have been answered today, especially that last one. Hopefully that gives you all some room for thought going forward. So before we end today's show, Johann, is there anything you want to promote, push, talk about, let people know what's going to happen in the next week?
No, I've got a relatively normal week this week. Just some client calls, team meetings, the usual good stuff. Nothing exceptional happening this week. So I will see you all next week at Monday morning at 8:30.
Awesome. We're looking forward to next week. For myself, we have, I'm actually after Manchester again. I'm going back to the stomping grounds of late. So back over there, got a client meeting and other bits and stuff that we need to get done over there. So that'll be good. I'm taking the old electric car for its first major drive out. So we'll see how that may get there, may not. We'll find out. We'll see if it makes it there. We'll see what happens. And just a bit of a plug my end. If any of you are looking for a YouTube channel to follow, then please consider Bofix Accountancy. We are on 976 subscribers as of late. As if anyone knows, if you get to the magic 1000, then that is the criteria. One of the criteria is needed to become monetized. And we've hit all the other criteria. We just need 24 lovely subscribers, and we are there. And then I'm hoping I get to say that I'm the only accountant in the UK that has 2 monetized channels, but we'll see how that goes. So please, do give it consider. It's got my lovely face on it. It's all been done by Lizzie, who is the producer, I'd say, of this particular asset accountant thing. All the assets, everything else is all done by her. So if you just a nice little plug, get us over to that threshold, we would be massively appreciated. And with that, that is the end of today's show. Thankfully, it's gone very, very well in terms of our feedback and everything. But if you do have any more feedback, then please do let us know. Remember, the whole point of feedback is to let us know what we've done wrong as well, not just sing our praises. But if there's anything that we've said today that we've taken the wrong take on, or you find issue with, or anything else, then please do put that feedback in. Normal links apply. Just look down below. There'll be a link there, and you'll be able to go from there. Remember that we are live each and every Monday at 8:30. So we're looking forward to next Monday, as Johann says, and we go live on your podcast services of your choice Wednesday morning. So that is a goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great week, and we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.
See you next week.